Hello and welcome back to Conversations with Claire. Today, my guest, this is going to be a personal story, and I cannot wait. This guest we met a couple of years ago. Does that sound right?
Yeah, maybe 2 years.
2 years ago?
I think so. Something like that.
Yeah. And so we met at church, and we serve on the same team, and it was just fun she just always has okay, let me just do her intro and then I'll talk about how we met, because I'm doing it in reverse order. So it's Angelique and then
Ingabire.
Okay, I wouldn't
It's
have
okay
done
if you
right.
can't pronounce it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, so Angelique Ingabire. Mm-hmm. And she is a certified yoga instructor. She's into fashion and fitness and health. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, I always start out and being like, hey guys, make sure you're watching on YouTube, because we have it on YouTube now. But clearly she's into fashion. Can you tell me about this outfit real quick?
Oh my
Is there
God.
anything to tell me about it?
There's nothing to tell you about. It's comfy.
Yes.
It's affordable.
It's a vibe.
It's a vibe, yeah. And it's like a good transition piece, from summer, fall, in Texas, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, I feel comfortable, and I want it to be comfy so that I can be less anxious as we chat.
Yes. Yeah, it is a weird thing in a way to be seated in front of a screen for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
That is, if you're not used to that, a little strange.
Exactly. But I'm okay. You're making me feel like...
Yeah. We'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And then she also, I hope that you can see this on the screen as well. One of the details I've always loved about you is your eyeliner.
Oh,
you always have colored eyeliner.
Thank you. So funny thing is, I'm not good with makeup, but I like to do my eyes. That's the only thing I can do. And then the rest, foundation and stuff, I'm terrible.
Yeah, I
at
don't know.
that. It's not really my thing.
If anybody...
My eyes, lips.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, you look good.
Thank you.
Yes.
So do you, girl?
Thank you. I always tell people, if anybody who knew anything about makeup were to watch me put my makeup on,
Your makeup looks great.
it looks just fine. Yeah, it looks fine.
Yeah.
But how it gets there, what happens, what I use, it would just be disturbing to anyone who knew anything about it.
Same.
Yeah. So it's fine.
Same.
Whatever. Okay. So how we met is we met at church. And I always just loved, obviously, her expression of clothing. That was always a fun thing. But you also just have a vibrant energy. And then sometime, it may have already been a year ago, we had the opportunity to actually have a more at-length conversation. Mm-hmm. And your story is very unique. And the way that you have chosen to use those experiences to create the version of you that hangs around today is really inspiring. And so that's what we're here to talk about. So let's just take it back. We're just going to go back to the beginning.
I know, because I'm I wonder what I shared with her exactly,
I'll find it.
Because... Yeah. So what do you you want to start from childhood?
Yes. Yeah, I want to start from childhood, because that definitely, there's some key pieces in childhood that are very noteworthy based on that conversation we had.
It's going to be a long story.
That's
but
okay.
I'm gonna
We have time.
Try to. So I was born in Rwanda, and in a family of 6 kids. And then... we had a normal childhood. We're so blessed to have parents that were able to afford so much, for us to do whatever we wanted to do. They exposed us to so much, But then life happened, it always happens. And then there was a war in my country in 1990.
Okay, there was a war.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when my life really just changed. My siblings' lives changed, forever. And that's why I'm here, I don't know if I would be here if it wasn't for the war, because that's one of the reasons why we ended up here. So anyway, the war happened. I don't know how to talk about it. From the my parents end up so it was between 2 tribes.
And how old were you?
When it started, I was 1990. I was 9. So right now I'm 45. Help me count. Oh my God. So I think I was 9 or 10.
Okay.
I think 9.
It's 2024. You're how old?
I'm 45. I turned 45 in September. Yes. So anyway, so the war starts, and we happen to be on the side that the government at that time was oppressing. because the people the government was fighting with were like from our tribe. So my parents were business people. My dad had his own printing business.
Okay.
And the government assumed that all the business people who were from that tribe were supporting the opposite, like
The war
the
itself.
war
Yeah.
itself. So my parents were arrested. Um, but eventually, with the negotiations, the world got involved, the UN got involved, and then eventually my mom like was there just for a week, and then she came back.
So she was arrested for a week. So you're 9 or 10 years old. War starts happening around you.
Yes.
And what was that like? Like, how did that impact your everyday life? Did you have to stop going to school? Like, what changed when that started?
Everything, because we are now looked at the bad people, and like it was also actually involved like in schools, like as kids. Like for example, I remember one incident at the time when you're into something, dealing with something, like you don't know that you're being traumatized. But I remember the time my parents had already been taken. So imagine we are staying at home by ourselves. We had some family members that were staying with us, and like the drivers kept taking us to school because my dad, my mom were not there to take us.
Yeah.
And we had a neighbor who was like really nice. He was a pastor, so he would come and check on us. But to just give you an idea of how my life changed, like my life and my siblings and most people, like most kids whose parents were from. So it was a Hutu and Tutsi tribe.
Okay.
And like from the Tutsi tribe, my parents, and so am I.
Yeah.
So anyway, so like one time we go to school, and they're like, oh, they have been like we have signs, marks from like they have to check us to make sure we don't have any marks, so that we are not from the rebels that we're fighting. The government was calling them rebels, but to me, I looked at them as my own people that we're trying to come back home.
Yeah.
It's a long story. People would have to read on it, or just read on it, like the history.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so like we had to take off our clothes. Like literally they had to check on us to make sure that we didn't have like specific marks, like from the rebels or whatever that were like a part of the team. I'm like, I'm young, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So that's traumatizing.
Well, and it's probably hard to try to explain this now in like, so the rebels were a part of the Tutsi tribe, but that didn't mean that all people who were a part of the tribe were rebels.
Exactly.
And so if they were, but even children could have markings that would then mark the children as
identify
being
them
rebels?
as, yeah.
And then
it's
would
just
be
the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Because nobody had
You're
that.
a child.
They were just being paranoid, I think, or just being like evil, like just making us go through like horrific experience as kids. Like already my parents are not home. I don't know what, like, for example, when they came to take my parents, so they were dressed up in army clothes. They're at the gate. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was I think either my friend's birthday or my friend's birthday was supposed to be the next day, because my mom was reading up a recipe to bake a cake for her, and then like the gatekeeper is like, oh, there are some army people at the gate. They're coming for you. So my mom, like, she just gets up, nobody, we've never been through a war before. So even my own parents didn't know how to deal with that.
Sure.
So I remember my mom getting to the gate. Obviously, there's 6 of us, 3 boys and 3 girls. So we are all young. So the youngest at the time. So if I was 9, he was 3 years old.
Okay. And then how were you weren't the oldest?
No.
Okay.
The oldest is 2 years older than me. So she was 11. My sister was 11.
And the youngest was 3.
My sister as well as 11. My brother was 10. And then I was 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So the youngest 3. Yeah. So anyways, so she gets there. They're like, where's your husband? And she's like, he's at work. They're like, okay, get in the car. But they have guns. So my mom is like, can I he had like a headscarf. She had a headscarf on. So she's can I take it off? No words. It's like, I remember it like it was yesterday. And then she goes. So we're so young and so ignorant, or maybe so naive. So my dad comes home. We're like, Dad, they came looking for you and they took mom. Can you please go so they can bring mom back home?
Sure.
So, but my dad, he went, he went and they're like, go back. Who told you to come? We'll come and get you when we want to. So he had to drive back home. And I remember that time we had like our last conversation and we are like, Dad, what's going to happen? Who's going to pay for our school fees? Like we're asking like dumb questions, but we were so young to know what's happening.
Yes, I don't think any question is a dumb question from a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
No.
So anyways, so they were taken away and eventually my mom, after 1 week, she came back home. But my dad stayed in with so many other like business people. Like my dad's sister was arrested and she was not even into business. They were just arresting random Tutsi people from the Tutsi tribe until like, so it was called the RPF, like the ones that was fighting with the government until they got involved and the UN gets involved and they had to negotiate. They're like, in order for us to have negotiation and stop fighting, you have to let our people out of jail. And then my dad was released and so many other people who were innocently arrested like him. So do you want me to keep going?
Yes. Yeah. So like what happens next? So mom comes home after a week, dad stays in a few more weeks, and then he comes back. So war is still happening.
Oh, yeah.
But your family then begins to just go on about life like normal. But you mentioned that they stripped you. So are you saying that whenever you went to school, your family, like they stripped you down in front of other people and looking for those? So that was traumatizing?
Yeah, we would come in class, like, and it was just only, they would be like, who are the Tutsis in class? Obviously, you put up your hand. It was very like, I don't even know what to say, traumatizing. But at the time, it was too fast, too soon. It's now when I look at it, I'm just like, that's just terrible.
Yeah.
But it's life. It's life. I'm here.
Yeah.
I survived it, and so many other people. I'm so grateful to be alive. But going back to the story of my parents, so when my dad got out, things were not the same anymore, because eventually he left the country. And I think that was the beginning of like a different life and everything for, especially us as the kids, because we did at 9 years old. So how it happened, like my dad, like one morning, but obviously they talked with my mom because he left him with the power of attorney to take care of their family business and all that, so that we're not struggling. But I think from what I've heard, my dad felt like it was not safe for him to stay, but he didn't think that if my mom and the kids stayed, anything would happen to us, like women and kids were safe. Instead of him being again arrested to go to jail, so he felt like it was best for him to leave, so that my mom can keep running the business and life goes on. We didn't know really what was going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
So my dad leaves, but that marked like a really weird relationship between me and my dad because I didn't understand it, because he didn't like specifically say, bye, I'm gonna leave. I remember like he was packing, like he used to travel a lot as a business person. He would go to Europe, like different places for his business and stuff. But this time, so he's parking his car.
Yeah.
He left by car. And then he went to a nearby country, Burundi first. And then eventually he moved to Belgium. But yeah, so he leaves, and then eventually I hear, oh, Dad is in Belgium and he's giving us phone calls and he wants to talk to us. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to talk to you, because if you loved me, you wouldn't leave me behind. Or if you loved my mom, you wouldn't leave her. I did not understand it.
Yes.
And he did not explain it.
Yeah.
So for so long, it was just weird like that.
How was your mom during all of that? Like, she understood and she just continued to take care of the family. And
yes, she was taking care of the family. And actually, like, I feel like the business did much better because I don't know, I'm so sorry.
No,
Like
it's
my mom
okay.
was like, even like I remember when I was young, parents, I don't know. Like now I know better because I'm older. I know marriage can be complicated and stuff. But I remember because I used to be like a sick kid and sometimes I'll sleep in my parents' room, so they can monitor me. But I remember one time we went in a guest room. I slept with my mom, she was watching me. I was like really sick. But I remember my dad coming in and saying, "Can you come back to work?" Because she was like the operational person of
Okay.
his business. He was more of the face, I feel like. I'm sure he had like the vision and everything, but he needed my mom.
Okay.
My mom was like really good, like operation wise, because that's why he trusted her and left her like the power of attorney to do whatever needed to be done while he was away.
Yeah.
And the business flourished in spite of the war happening, in spite of the crazy stuff that were happening. Just to give you an example of like some of the crazy things that were happening. One night, so I was in boarding school at the time. So I grew up, like this is like maybe 94.
1994.
94 when that happened, or 93, I don't know. So but I remember like I'm in boarding school, my mom and my younger siblings at home, they go to bed and a grenade is thrown into the living room. The whole roof like comes off, but they survived.
So a grenade just came into the home.
Where
one
they
night.
threw like people,
Yeah.
because there was people trying to kill us at the time.
And
from
did you
the
know
Hutu
that?
tribe. Yeah, we were aware, because like for example, one of our neighbors, it was not really safe to put it that way.
Yeah.
Like 100% safe, but it had become the norm for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it. And I remember one of the neighbors, the husband was a Hutu, the wife, I think, might have been a Tutsi, because she called my mom one night. She said, "There's a meeting going on in my living room. They're planning to come and just attack you and kill the whole family."
Oh my gosh. I remember whenever we had our longer conversation where you kind of
Yeah.
like told me about this, and I remember you telling me, you asking your mom
Yeah.
about what is it like to die?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I remember. So that was the first day. It was, I think maybe October 1st, 1990. Like it was the first night of the war.
Yeah.
It was the first time for us, even I think for my parents, to ever hear shotguns. So like it's at night, everybody's sleeping and they start going off. And so my dad gets us up, we dress up, we take out our PJs, like, y'all get ready. Like maybe if we are lucky, because we are just now like speculating. We don't know what's really going on.
Yeah.
We're just hearing shotguns and we are so scared to look through the windows. What
Sure.
if it just shoots at you? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I remember my dad being like the man in the house, like telling us like how to dodge the bullets, or like if like one of us, because we're still young, he wants to go to the restroom, he'll be the one who'll come with you and stay with you. My mom was just like so chill, I remember. And then at one point she sat, so we brought our mattresses in my parents' bedroom.
Yeah.
Because we're like, if we're just gonna all stay together
Yes.
until they come, we'll try to plead with them. If they can let us go, we'll just run or whatever. We didn't know what was going on. It's the first time ever for both my parents and us to be a part of something like that. So anyways, so it keeps going on. So my mom has the Bible, I remember. She used to have a Bible like,
By her bed.
by her bed. But now this time she has it and she's just... like the cover is on, she's just reading, so we just go sit on her bed, all of us. And I remember, I don't know who asked, so if it's me or one of my siblings, but I remember the response, I remember the conversation. Just mind you, like for me, the way I've survived, like I think I blocked out so much stuff. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's one thing God has used to win me back, because like I blocked everything. And then all of a sudden, I think it's only been 2 years. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have to look at my thing, because
it's okay.
that's how I can tell, because I know that, I think that's actually when I shared my story.
Yeah, your
I think
tattoo.
it was 22. Yes.
I think it has been 2 years.
Yes, it must have been 2 years now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I like really had that, I don't know if it was a vision with God or something, and that I remembered that scene in my childhood happening. But then I woke up, like I remember I just didn't want to deal with it because I'm like, I don't want to go back and start crying and everything. And then anyway, I just had this voice telling me, can you trust me for just a second? So I'm like, okay. So we go back. Like literally, it's like I'm reliving the whole scene. And then I see my mom, and I remember us asking her, Mom, why, like, are we gonna die? She's like, yes. And then I'm like, well, so are they gonna shoot us? Is it gonna hurt when they shoot us, like the bullet?
Yes.
And then I remember her, obviously she doesn't know, she's never been shot.
Right.
And then she goes, yeah, it's gonna hurt like hot water, but it will be just for a second, and then you're just gonna go to heaven and you'll be with God and it's gonna be okay. And I remember that time just feeling like, okay, I mean,
I can do this.
I can do this. But then going back to my vision and my relationship with God, I just remember God showing me, bringing that back to my memory and saying like, do you see your mom? Do you see how peaceful she is? And she shows me how my dad, all of us, like, you know, like they call them nannies, yeah, our house girls, like some of my family members would live with us, like extended family. So if some of them were there, remember my mom's cousin, I think she was there. So like I'm seeing even my siblings, I see chaos, but I just see how peaceful my mom is. And I hear these voices telling me like, if you can trust me, like with a hand, like it sounds crazy, but like it's not an audio voice, but like it's a spirit to spirit experience asking me like, do you see how much peace she has in the midst of the chaos? If you let me, I can give you that. I might not be able to answer your questions, why a million people, innocent people died, including children. I'm not going to answer that, but I can give you the peace. I can walk with you. I can help you stop being like, it's like I was tired of like being angry, confused and lost and holding in everything and blocking memories so that I can survive and live, you know? I mean, this happened, if it's 2 years ago, I think I was 42, because I just turned 45 in September. So I might have been 42 when that happened. I remember sharing a little bit at church. Yeah. So that's that.
And so so your dad leaves and then how quickly, like, because I know that you were with another family member in another country, or at least somewhere else. You were visiting family whenever she passed.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Now I remember what our conversation was. So like my dad was gone for 4 years.
Okay.
He left like right after he was released from whatever jail. And then so my mom stayed raising us. So now I'm 14.
Okay.
But at that time, things are good and bad at the same time. Like there are negotiations happening between the two parties that are fighting.
So this is 4 to 5 years of you hearing grenades going off, and so like 4 to 5 years of some peace, a lot of chaos, like
a lot of chaos. But so that one night was the only night we ever had like gunshots like that in the capital city, because that's where I was raised and that's where I was living in Kigali. But the war was happening like outside Kigali.
Okay.
It had not yet reached the capital city.
Okay.
So I remember being at school. I'm like fast forwarding, right?
Yeah.
Because so much happened during the 4 years. So like I'm at school, but I think my parents talked. I'm sure my parents did talk because, you know, flight tickets were bought and everything. So I remember my mom's cousin coming to pick me up. We had just finished our finals. And he's like, you're going home. But I'm like, well, I don't have my test results yet. Why are you here? It was just weird. And then I saw my brother and sister who were going to a different boarding school. They were in the car. They were also in the car going home with me. Then I'm like, is everything okay? But he's like, no, everything is okay. Just come. Then I'm like, but I was like really stubborn. Plus, I didn't know that life was about to change. I was just being a kid. I was 14 at that time, not a teenager.
Yeah, a teenage girl.
A teenage girl.
You're supposed to ask a lot of questions.
Right.
And
So
be
I'm
rebellious.
like, what's going on? So I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, is mom okay? why are you without my mom?
Right.
I was super close with my mom, like really, really close. And so anyway, we leave school, we go home, but it's not home. It's not the house where we used to live. Now we're at another, like my parents, they had like a building where they had like the factory that like, it was a printing business. So like they did like scholastic materials, like they would make like textbooks and calendars, things like that, printing stuff. And then the top level had the actual store where they sold those things. And then upstairs, my mom had opened up at the time, I think, a hair salon. And then up to people were leasing it as an apartment, like a family. The wife looked like this is the like diverging, but like the wife for that guy who lived upstairs looked exactly like my mom. And unfortunately, when they were looking for my mom during the war, she was killed. They were thinking it's my mom. That's what I was told. I was not there, but it's so sad.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway,
So yeah, keep going.
yeah, we get home and it's late at night. Yeah, and there are no lights on. So like my mom had closed down
Business.
the hair salon, and now it looked like an apartment, like with furniture. There were beds. I mean, I was gone for the whole semester, so I don't know what was going on.
Okay.
And to be honest, I've not have that conversation with my siblings. That's another thing, like how we are going through life with it. We've chosen, I feel like, to just move on because so many people have had the same experience as ours. And I'm just now, even myself, starting to deal with my own trauma, if that makes sense.
Totally.
But anyway, we get home and we start packing. My mom is like, you're going to stay with your dad for 2 weeks during it was Easter holidays. So we got 2 weeks off school. And my dad at the time had left Belgium and he had gotten a place in Uganda. Okay. And that's where he was staying. So we're going to stay with him. And then I'm like, what about you, mom? I remember asking her, she's like, I'm going to stay. Everything is going to be okay. The two parties are negotiating. Eventually the war is going to end. But right now it's not safe for you guys to be here. That's why we didn't have like the lights on. We're using candles so that they don't know that we are staying there.
Yes.
So the next day we fly out, we go stay with my dad. And the plan was 2 weeks after, at least that's what my mom had told me. And that's what I thought was going to happen. But after 2 weeks, gosh, I'm okay. I'm okay.
It's okay.
I've gone through this so many times. I should be okay.
That's okay. Do what you got to do.
After the 2 weeks, I remember my dad. Now I know it wasn't just me, I think, because my brother told me he was there with me too. So my dad just walked the two of us. Mind you, we are 6 kids. I don't know why, because I don't think I would have forgiven my dad if I hadn't gotten a chance to speak to my mom for the last time. So we went somewhere. I remember it was upstairs, like it's in Africa. Like, I don't know. It was like a phone place. There were so many like phone booths because we're making an international phone call to my mom back home in Rwanda. And I remember talking to her. She first talked to my dad. I don't know what they talked about, but I remember my last conversation with my mom, obviously. I remember that. But I remember her say, like, she was still so, like, peaceful, but scared at the same time. Because at this time now, they were like, I don't know, like walkers, the ones that, like, shoot with, like,
You can tell neither one of us are military.
Yeah.
Either way, okay.
I don't know what they're called.
There was artillery. There was some type of...
Yes, and they're shooting at the building where my mom is, and with, like, my cousin was staying with her. Her other cousin was in town. A few people were staying in the house with her. But I remember her asking, I was like, Mom, are you eating? Like, I'm asking, like, I'm still asking dumb questions.
You have no
Then
idea what to do.
Yeah, but yeah, now I'm like, that was so dumb. And then she's like, it's okay. I'm like, do you have food? She's like, we have water and then we have sugar. I don't know. I remember her saying like rice with sugar or something like for energy or like so they can
Yeah. I
stay
mean, technically, if she just needs energy, then
energy just
rice
to
and
stay
sugar will do
alive,
those things. Yeah.
And then she changes the conversation. She goes, how is asking about my our last born? At this time, he was like 8 years old. She was like, is Cusa okay? Have you taken him to get a haircut? Then in my head, I think I grew up, like I just matured in that moment. I'm like, Mom, you're the one dealing with craziness. I'm like, how are you doing? I remember I could hear her like crying but holding back her tears. She's saying, yes, they're shooting like outside, we can hear them, but we're gonna be okay. I think my dad grabbed that phone, but that's the last conversation I had with my mom, and the rest is history. She was killed like everybody else. And yeah.
Did you ever go back to Rwanda?
Yes, yeah, we went back, but we never really found her body. We just know that
Yeah.
she was killed
Okay.
because, like, some of our relatives that survived, like, once they reached the refugee camp, like where they were staying, they wrote a letter to us, and that's how we found out about my mom. And at the time, my dad was not there; he had gone, I think, to Belgium. My dad's mission after everything was to get us out of everything and to give us a better future.
Yeah.
Now, as a teenager and as someone who had missed out on living with my dad for 4 or 5 years,
Right.
I didn't see that as something good. I was so resentful of him for doing that.
Sure.
But now I understand. Now that I'm older and I can see, I probably don't understand everything. I don't understand his logic, but I have grace for him. And I understand that that's the best way as my dad that he saw that he could handle the situation.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful he did that because I'm here, because he worked so hard to get us here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask some of so of course, like I cannot pretend to understand anything about any of it because I haven't experienced any of it. I have lost my grandmother who was very involved in my upbringing. She passed away, mind you, by now I'm 28 when she passes. But that was still like the shocking loss. And so the circumstances are not at all the same. I'm not intending to compare that, but
no.
what I'm
Everyone has a story.
Yes, everyone does. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about, because today, so this has only now been not even 4 years. It'll be 4 years next February, since losing her. But
I'm so sorry.
I mean, loss is terrible. It's just grief is awful.
Pain is pain. It
Yes.
doesn't matter what form it comes in.
Yeah.
So don't ever apologize.
Yeah. But my like life mission is so largely like there are things echoing in my mind all the time. She gave me an example. So you've talked about being close with your mother when you were growing up, and how her peace is something that you have been so inspired by.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, what are some of the traits that she had that you try to emulate, that you try to repeat in your own life?
Oh my gosh, I cannot live up to my mom's.
And that's okay. I'll never live up to my grandma either. But what did she do that you strive to be like?
To be loving.
Okay.
She had so much love. Like, so I'm blessed to come from a family that was like well off. Mm-hmm. But in Africa, you can like drive and see like a really nice house, and then a mile away from there you see another house that's not, at least at the time. Now Kigali is like really beautiful, so developed and super clean and all that stuff, but at the time, there was some nice houses and others were not that great looking. But here's my mom's heart though, even my dad, but like we're speaking about my mom now that you asked me about my mom. I remember I would be going like jogging And then she would stop by at a neighbor's house and greet them and ask them how they're doing and start helping them. Like telling, taking food to them. If they had kids, paying for their kids' school fees, things like that. Like at home, I don't remember a time ever, but that speaks to how generous both my parents were. We were never just us and my parents. We always had extended family staying with us, especially during the holidays, because maybe they didn't have like somewhere to go, or even if it wasn't that, they were paying for so many people to go to school. So like, just like, she had such a big heart, you know, and she was so patient and so kind. And she was, I guess another thing I got from her, she loved yoga. She was like a fitness, she was super like tall and slender though. Like I don't look anything like my mom. Yes, she did. No, she really was into fitness, kind of like me, because I remember like when my dad left, that's when we started taking swimming classes. And her dad was killed again. Like this is something that has been going on between the Tutsi and the whole like tribal like tension, you know. So like her dad, my grandpa, who I never met, he was like thrown in the river and he didn't know how to swim, and that's how he died. So my mom had always had like the fear of water. But so I guess talking about her, she was super courageous. Like she put us into like swimming lessons, and she took them with us. She would go, like after work, she would come get us. Like in the summertime, would go swimming. My brothers would take tennis lessons and do whatever they wanted to do. But anyways, my mom like was brave enough to just get over her fear and start swimming and learning how to swim. And so she was just like a go-getter.
Yeah.
And besides that though, like in a spiritual sense, like her relationship with God, like I think I shared with you, I was raised Catholic, yeah, but my mom was always curious, and she was not afraid for us to ask her questions and her to say, I don't know, because I would be like, Mom, why do we have to recite a rosary? Because her mom, my grandma, like would come and be like, you should be reciting the rosary. And I hated it because I'm like, I don't understand what I'm doing. Can you tell me why I have to do that? Why can't I just talk to God? And then my mom is like, you know what, Angelique, I don't really know why we have to do that. You don't have to do it. You can just talk to God. He will hear you without just going through the rosary. So like things like that.
Yeah.
And then she started a group, like a prayer group, like now I know it's called small group.
Yeah.
I was young. I would
what we call it here in the US. Yeah.
Every Tuesday night, she had a group of people from different religions that would come over our place.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. And then they would have like a Bible study because she was curious. She wanted to learn more about God.
Yeah.
Because as a Catholic, she didn't really know anything. I mean, like, I don't know how you were raised, but like, I think, at least for me, we did dive deeper into the Bible. So
I have some friends that are Catholic, and I really can't pretend to understand it at all. I mean, I've been to like a Catholic wedding and so on, but I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, which for me was really a not positive experience. But there were other circumstances surrounding that. And because of a number of different reasons, I did not enjoy being there and didn't really experience maybe what others did. I'm not sure. It just was not a good time for some reasons. And so anyway, I don't even feel like I have a good understanding of like growing up Southern Baptist, which sounds silly because I literally went to a Southern Baptist church my whole life until I was 17. And then I didn't return to church until after moving to Austin and finding Red Rocks. So that was like a really cool coming back around to that. But so you're in Uganda and she passes, and then your dad's mission is now, and about your mom too, what I also just love, like it was, she was courageous, she was generous, she was kind, she was curious, she was brave, she was hardworking, like all of these, like what a cool mother to have.
Like she was an angel. Like obviously I'm biased because she's my mom, and she has
she was your mom and you love her that much. You lived in the same home as her. You would have seen the bad stuff too.
Yeah.
And you still think she's an angel.
She was
That's
very
incredible.
patient. And you know, like with the African culture, parents can be like very like, I don't know, authoritative.
Okay.
But my mom like had the balance, you know, like how they talk about gentle parenting. It was not a thing in Africa.
Yeah.
But I think my mom was way ahead
Yeah.
of the game because she had that, you know,
Yeah.
like I remember a moment, this is like a silly moment at school, because obviously my parents had like like a place like where they sold like scholastic materials. Like I would have like so many, and sometimes I'll take a lot. But I remember one teacher like telling my mom she's bringing way too many pens and books at school, and she's making other kids feel some type of way. But my mom, being a good mom, she listened to that, and she knew it was not coming from a bad place.
Yeah.
So, but I remember I was so maybe 9 or 10, but I remember her calling me and we sat down, not with my siblings, you know, and she's like, Angelique, you know, I hear you're taking more books that you need, more stuff that you need. And for me, I'm okay with it, but it doesn't look good. So how about you don't do that? Because your teacher told me that. Then I'm like, okay, mom, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, how? Like she didn't have to do it that way, but she was just so kind and nice, and she knew how to talk to us in a beautiful way, you know. So I just remember that moment. I'm like, wow, you know. Another person was like, they're telling me you're doing this and this and this at school, but not my mom. She was just like so cool like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now so you are in Uganda. She passes. Your father is now,
Taking care of us.
yeah. And
After 5 years of not being in our lives.
Yeah, I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay there with him? At what point, like, where did you go from there?
So let me 4 years. So I was 14. I came to the US. So maybe I was 4 years and a half way in Uganda.
Okay.
And that's where I did my high school. But my dad was, I hate to say it, but he was never like really there.
Yeah.
Like, and I understand part of it had to do, like, the war destroyed like everything back home.
Yes.
He had to go back and deal with that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, his mission was to get us out. He was either trying to have us go to Europe or come here in the States, because at the time his sister and younger brother were already going to school in Indiana. And so he had come to visit them, and that's how he found out about like a community college in Michigan, the Wajiak, Michigan. So that's how we ended up like here. But yeah, we lived there for 4 years, and my dad was in and out. So we really, I hate to say this, but we raised ourselves.
Okay.
From like 14, the youngest being 8. And
Were
the
you-
oldest being 16.
Were you very disciplined, or were you very, like, in hindsight, were you very disciplined? Did you go to school on time, study well, etc.? Or were you rebellious or anything like throughout those years? What was kind of your disposition? I mean, did you feel angsty, like my mom's gone and I'm mad at the world, or like how did you navigate those years?
So I felt it. I felt all that. But the way I dealt with it,
Yes.
it's like I blocked everything in my brain, in my memory. I didn't want to think about it. I had to keep living.
Yes.
And I think that's why it took so many years for me to deal with my own childhood trauma. Like literally like 40, like, I mean, I've done some work in and there, but like the time where I really know that I truly surrendered and said, okay, God, I need help. And I started going to therapy is when, like, at 42.
Yeah.
So like all those years I was just living. But yeah, we had to go to school because my dad put us in like Catholic schools, boarding schools. And he was so smart. He would go and talk to like the principal, who would happen to be like maybe a nun. These are my kids, their mom passed away, I'm raising them, and I have to go back and forth. He would tell them what's going on, and they were so kind that they took care of us. So they would check in with us. I didn't have the freedom to rebel at school. Now, at home, obviously he would give us like an allowance within limits. Like he would be like, this is how much you have. If you run out of it,
You're out.
You're out. And we knew we were going to be out. So that made us like learn to be responsible, and who'll switch it around because we are all young, you know. This time my brother is the one in charge. This time my sister is in charge, you know, like it was like,
Yeah.
in a way it taught us to be responsible. But the most beautiful thing that came out of the whole experience is like I think the foundation we had with my mother's love. It kept us so close that like I would look around, I'm like, I'm hurting, it's so painful. But then I would look around and see my siblings. I'm like, okay, if they're getting up and going to school, if they're getting up, taking a shower, they literally kept me going. Like I don't think I would be alive if it wasn't for them.
Yeah.
Because I remember there are nights I would get up and go to the bathroom and get in the bathtub and just like do a yogi ball and just like bawl out crying and look at myself inside, and they're like, are you okay, what's going on? And then something in my brain will be like, you can't do that to them, they're also going through. I'm like, if they are strong and they're not crying, I don't know if that's healthy, but they were stronger than me. So I'm like, I need to be strong too. Then I will get out and just keep on living, you know. So I think the most beautiful thing that came out of those years where we didn't have our mom and dad was in and out is like the bond between the siblings that happened.
Yeah.
That's what kept us going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you came over to Michigan. Did you come over, right?
So we we lived in Indiana.
Okay.
South Bend, Indiana.
Okay.
I went to St. Mary's, Notre Dame. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Did you all come at the same time or, okay, no.
3 of us came together. My older sister, my older brother, and me. We came together. And
All
then
to go to school?
to school.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we went to college. It changed. We started with that community college where like my dad like got us like, I don't know, got us in. I don't know how to say it. And then eventually like my brother and sister went to, even me, I went to IUSB, Indiana University of South Bend. But shortly after, I ended up going to St. Mary's, Notre Dame. Like, it's an interesting story.
Okay, so what about, so you're growing up younger age in a city within Rwanda.
The capital
And then
city.
you moved to Uganda, which is probably somewhat different, right? Like they're not the same. There's a little
Speak
bit
a
of
different language.
Speak a different language.
Yeah.
Behave differently potentially in some ways. And then you come to the United States, which there's going to be a huge gap there. Culture, language, all of it.
Snow.
Yeah, that was probably a shock.
Oh my gosh.
What I just don't even know. It's funny. I'm like,
a lot. Huh?
It is a lot. And I don't know what to ask. Because of course, if I'm going, okay, wait, but then if I bring this out over your whole time horizon, we're still only at you being a 18-ish year old at this point.
Yeah.
And then we have all of these years till we even arrive at 42 and you start to reflect and go, I need to take a look back at what's actually happened. And I'm curious why you did that. Like, why did you decide at 42, I'm ready to take a look. I want to take a look. But before we go there, so you come here to go to school. It's a culture shock, but you go to school, you know that you're supposed to, you're with your siblings, and that's just what you do. Is that right?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you go to school for?
I went to school for accounting and finance with a minor in French.
Okay.
I just didn't want to. So like Rwanda was colonized by the Belgian and they spoke French. So like we grew up, like schools were teaching French, at the time, but now it's both French and English.
Okay.
But at the time it was just French. So we go to Uganda, we now have to learn English because we were colonized by the British and the main language there in school is English, you know.
Okay.
But that was helpful
because
when I come here, now I can speak English. It's broken English. I still have my accent, but it's better. But so it's still like, it was a lot happening. But I think when you're younger, your brain is like a sponge.
Yeah.
Like you just
pick stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Okay. So how did we get to Austin? I'm sure there's like a lot that happens in between there and there, right? I know I feel like I'm having to jump because I really want to jump into something else too. But I know there's so many parts to this story.
Yes.
Is your dad still around?
No, unfortunately, he passed away.
Okay.
He had liver cancer. When we came here, he moved to Belgium with my two siblings. So that's where he lived most of his life after we came here.
Okay.
And that's actually where we buried him. So it's become home. It's like I have 3 homes, like Rwanda, Belgium, because my family is still there. My brother and sister still live there, and they have family. And then the 3 of us are in the States, and my brother moved back to Africa.
Okay.
One of my brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're really spread out, but you still have a really good bond. You guys all stay really close.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That bond, I pray and hope it doesn't go away, because it's one of the things that really have kept me going.
Yeah.
Because I know there are other 5 people that have gone through the same journey as me, and but here they are doing their best and doing amazing. So yeah, I'm like, why not me?
I love it. Okay, so you hear it's kind of cliche, but like you hear the phrasing of like turn your trauma into your testimony, and that just seems to be the natural progression of if you can get through your traumatic experiences, you come out the other side and you have the opportunity to then use it as your testimony, which is what I feel like you do just by living the life that you live. So maybe, sure, this is your first time coming on a podcast to do it, but it's this beautiful story of a resilient human who's undergone far worse conditions than most people that I know. And we all have our own, right? But then to show up in the way that you do now. So you don't have any other family members here in Austin.
No. My brother is in Indianapolis. That's where I moved from. Yeah. Because like Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Like, he's very conservative. He's done the same thing ever since college. He's an electrical engineer, same company. Very like focused. I know.
Okay,
so
and
he
you're
stayed
not.
there. No, my God, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, because you did finance. Do you work in that world today?
Yes, my full-time job.
Okay, yes.
Is
that we never talk about.
That we never talk about is accounting. I work in the payroll department for the state.
Okay.
But honestly, like that's a good point. How you said like, how did I end up being an accountant? Like, it's just coming from my trauma. I'm like, okay, what am I good at? I'm really good with numbers.
Yeah.
My dad is like, okay, you're going to go to school. Like he's like, I'm going to get you here. You're going to decide how your life is going to go. So I'm like, okay, what do I do with my life? I'm like, accounting, I guess, because I'm good with numbers.
Yeah.
And then because I didn't want to lose my French, I'm like, a minor in French.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up.
Well, and you had this unique experience too that like I can't imagine. So I come from like a family that at least my parents and their parents like have been in the US, right? So it's so many generations back for I think ultimately British is like the predominant thing, and if we look at my genealogy anyway, but we've been here for a while, right? And so I come from, by the time I go to get to college age, it's totally optional. And a lot of people in this generation, like there isn't this same, and obviously I feel like COVID just gassed those flames of like, yeah, you can just like chill. And then chilling isn't seeming to work well. So I'm not a big fan of it at all. But either way, it's like the work ethic and so on is in an interesting spot today. But so you know that your dad has worked extremely hard to get you here.
Oh yeah.
And so did that also then drive you to still go ahead and just follow that path of like, dad worked his tail off to get me here and I have to figure out how to make it work here. And so I'll do this accounting thing. I mean, is that right? No.
Honestly, no.
No.
Now that I know, like most of my life, it's so sad to say, I was living in a trauma state. But that's why God is so good. He carried me through it. Okay, I would just be like, okay, I'm here. My family tells me I'm smart. And I know I am because I was smart. Ever since I was young, I'm like, I'm good with numbers. I'm going to go do that. I was not really thinking about my dad or anything. I was just like really surviving.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It was more of like a survival thing, but God turned it around and it worked out,
Yeah.
in a way. But no, it has nothing. I mean, my dad would always, maybe like subconsciously, I wanted to make my parents proud, but it was not like the thing on my mind, really. I was just really trying to get through life. Like, I'm like, okay, I woke up, I guess I have to show up and do something, So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so what happened when you were 42 and you realized you wanted to take a look at it? When did had you gotten angry throughout that? I mean, like through your 30s and so on. Were you involved in any sort of spirituality? Because that was a big deal to your mother, and it's a big deal to you today. Was there a time where that wasn't a big deal, or?
Oh, yeah. Like, for most of my life, I was like really angry. So, like, when we found out that my mom was killed, I remember sitting on the bed, and I've always been connected now that I know better with God in a way, but I didn't know. But I remember hearing like, it's like a voice. It's like a spirit to spirit conversation happening at 14 or maybe 15. I don't know, other time. And I heard a voice ask me, so what are you going to do to the people who killed your mom, your grandparents, your friends, like all these people? How are you feeling? I'm like, oh, I forgive them, but I don't forgive you. I hate you for it. And my dad at the same time, because I felt like, I don't know if my parents would still be together. I can't speak for them. They're both gone. I love them both equally, but I don't know if they would still be together. So at the time I was just like, if maybe there was no issue, maybe between them, maybe my mom would have come with us and she would have survived. So for a minute, I blamed my dad. I'm like, you're the reason my mom.
How long was that minute? Was that like a decade-long minute, or was that like a year-long minute, or 2-decade-long minute?
It's for a while.
That's okay.
For a long time.
Yeah.
But I knew better, but I didn't know. I couldn't be angry at the people who committed the crime.
Yes.
Because I'm like, if you knew my mom, you would never do that.
Right.
So it's like my brain had to turn the anger
somewhere.
So it was towards God and my dad.
Yeah.
The two most important figures in my life, That's very weird. But eventually I got over it. I'm like, it is what it is. But with God, I couldn't. I could not understand a God that is, especially because I know God through my mom. Then I'm like, she loved you that much. She helped that many people. Like, what's the point of loving? I'm going to die anyway. Like, you don't care. Like, that was my attitude for so long.
And when you say it, it sounds logical. I think that's the thing, is like when you say that, and even when you said about, the two most important, how silly does that sound? It's like, it doesn't sound silly. You didn't use the word silly. I'm sorry. I don't. But
it's okay.
Like none of it sounds outlandish. Even that thought process of, it doesn't matter anyway. What do you care? Like, based on your experience, that's a fair reaction in a way.
Yeah, but in a way now, I don't wish for so many moments, because I think eventually I made up for it. But as a teenager, it was so hard for me to love my dad back. And I think when he saw us, like after the 4 or 5 years or whatever, he wanted to make up for those years, at least with me. That's what I felt from him. But I couldn't let him in. I didn't know how to. It's not like I didn't want to, But I remember my aunt, his sister, coming and telling me that your dad feels like you don't like him, like you're resentful of him, and you just, at that time, my mom had not yet been killed. She's like, you always, whenever he tells you to do something, you're like, well, have you run it by my mom? Because as soon as we got there, he was thinking, let me take them to Europe. Let me take them to Belgium. I'm like, oh, so we came here so you can just take us away from moms. Like that's the mental. And as a teenager, I was a terrible teenager. Like I had my own opinion, especially with my
I was a
dad.
terrible teenager.
With my dad, I was just like,
Yeah.
he doesn't know what he's talking about. He was not in my life for the past 5 years, and now he wants to tell me what to do with my
Sure,
life, you
sure.
know. But I remember that moment. Now, when I look back, just knowing how strong and how guarded my dad was, for him to share that with his sister, that he's like really hurt that I am not like seeing him, like I don't know, I'm not loving towards him.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart now.
Yeah.
But at the time I was just like, I don't care.
Right.
Yeah.
What you have forgiven your dad?
What have I forgiven?
No, sorry. You have forgiven your dad. Is that true?
Oh my gosh. And I'm so glad I did before he passed away. And it's not that he said, Angelique, I'm so sorry for this and that, because I honestly, truly believe that my dad believes that he did the best he knew how to do.
Yeah.
And that's true for him. But for me, especially when I was younger, I did not get it. Even now, there's still parts of me I like, I still don't get it, but I understand it's how you saw it. But I remember, again, that voice that has never left me, even though I was running so far away from God. I remember I was sitting in my apartment and I just had this voice. This is when my dad found out that he had cancer. He reached out to all the kids. So some of us were already here in the States. The ones in Belgium were like grown up. They were no longer living with him in the same house. So he made a phone call and he just told us, all I ask from each one of you is I just want to spend the rest of my time here with you. Like, I just want us to talk. I just want you guys in my life. So for me, in a way, I took that as for him humbling himself and saying, here I am, do with it whatever you want. But then I love my dad too. Like, I have so many great memories with him.
Yeah.
He really spoiled me as a little girl. I got out of nap time, because I would go stay with him and he would let me get up and not take naps. So like, we have those moments. I love him and all that, but that's why it was so hard for me to understand how he could live without me. Mm-hmm. It was more personal. It was not even my mom, my siblings. I'm like, me, you left me, you could have taken me, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so like, then that's when we started having a relationship. I'll call more. I would fly out to Belgium every time I was done with school. I would go see him, even like when I started working. Mm-hmm. And I remember just sitting one time inside, like saying like, I forgive him. I forgive him. Mm-hmm. I love my dad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't have to go tell him that I forgive you. He could care less, because I think for him, he really thinks he did the best he knew how to do as a father.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I had that peace and I had a relationship with him before he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgiveness. Yet again, I can compare my experience, or I can share my experience with forgiveness, but not. The circumstances will never be the same. But with circumstances where I felt like justice was not had in a situation, I was treated unfairly, you name it. Because there are many times where forgiveness takes place and the person has asked for it, has earned it. I'm putting quotations for those not watching.
Yeah.
And then there are times where with forgiveness, it's never that they earned forgiveness, or that the situation or whatever it is. And yet if I choose to hold that resentment in, so for my own experiences, and then I have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so that costs me too much to have to hold on to that.
Yeah.
And so then I feel too, in my experience, with the certain ones that I have that I hold, that there's a lot of experience there. So there's also this is a big one, right? Like this isn't just a one-off thing where you were once wronged. There's a lot here. It holds a lot of weight. And so for the weightier ones for me, I find myself having to revisit forgiveness sometimes and being like, okay, I thought that I had forgiven you. Like I thought that I made the conscious choice to forgive you. And here I am feeling this bitterness, resentment again. I'm going to have to just choose forgiveness again. Like, does that feel relatable at all? Like you've had to revisit forgiveness even with your dad? Or do you feel like it was like a one-time thing?
Honestly, with my dad, it was a one-time thing.
That's cool.
Because I was angry with him, but I never lost love for him. Because I think even when he was doing things that I didn't like, I could feel his love for me, but I did not like how he handled things. And honestly, it's by the grace of God. I don't know. I think when that time came for forgiveness, God had done so much work in my heart unknowingly that I was ready to do it, because my dad had started like calling me. He would just like call me out of, because I was living in the States and he's in Belgium. So I randomly would call and leave message. We would write to each other. We started having that like relationship we had when I was like young, I think. Then I'm like, okay, I guess it's time to let him in. Yeah. And I'm so grateful and I'm so glad I did, because it was good for me, but also forgiveness is needed, like it's good for the person that's forgiving. And it allowed my dad to have a relationship with me before he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you get to.
Yeah.
So then what about, because you said, did you say that your forgiveness with your dad was easier than your forgiveness with God?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Again, my dad is an imperfect person. He's human. So I can see how he can mess up. But God, he's holy, all powerful, all these things. You see my anger is coming back.
Yeah.
But I love you, but like how?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I still don't, but I choose to believe it.
So why do you choose to believe in God and choose to show up at a spiritual place? And like what makes you choose to do those things today?
One, because my life does not make sense without God in it. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
Like it does not make sense how I survived. It just doesn't, because some of my friends were supposed, actually like family friends, were supposed to live with us, but they didn't, and they all died. Their brother was in Uganda, and he would come and live with us. Then I'm like, why us? Like how? Like it just doesn't make sense. So like my life is a miracle, like, so that's one. Another one is that vision or that moment I had with him, like healing me from my past trauma by just bringing up how I'm God. I'm not going to explain to you why things happen the way they happen. But if you let me, I can give you, because when I looked, I don't know how to, you would have to see my mom in that moment. When there are shotguns happening under the cover with the Bible, like when I saw it, maybe like that, when that vision came back at 42 years old, it's different. It's a different angle. It's just like I was not there, and I'm just like looking at her spirit and everything, and how peaceful that she was. Then I'm like, okay, so I might not get answers to all crazy questions that I have, why things happen the way they happen. Life is still gonna life, but I'm gonna have peace in chaos. I want that, and he's like really taken care of me, like even like in spite of my bad choices, my rebellious ways against him. He never, how they say we are imperfect people pursuing a perfect God. But for me, yes, that's true. But at the same time, God has pursued me like he has chased after me like crazy. So I've never had like anyone chase after me like that, like he has done. So I think that's what makes me choose him every day, even though sometimes I'm like, I don't understand. But then again, I started reading the Bible. I can't quote where it says, but he says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can't understand him. And if I understood him, I don't think I would worship a God that I understand completely. That's just me. I don't think I would do that. So that's my why, really.
Yeah. So how has your life been enriched since choosing to believe in God? Because I definitely chose to start believing that there was something bigger than me a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about like, I would like peace and chaos. Like who doesn't want that, And I have so much. I even at one point had Ryan on whenever he wrote his book.
Yeah.
And since, Ryan Weckerman from church.
Yeah.
And I had him on the podcast and we were talking.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
I was not reading, but I was listening to his book at the time. That was a really good one.
Yeah. That's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
And he's great at it.
Yeah.
But it was cool because I even felt like in that moment, through that conversation, which this is the, one of the leaders in the spiritual place that we hang out in. And I could say, like, I don't know that I think that a lot of things make any sense, but I like being here. And so for me, do I believe that everything that everybody, like, I truly don't at this stage of my journey.
Yes.
I don't believe that I know much, but I do know that my life is far better when I choose to ask God to lead the way.
Same.
And so
Same.
I'm just going to choose that route. Mm-hmm. And maybe over the course of time that feels, I don't need a ton of clarity. I'm super clear on the fact that the life that I have today is so enriched by the choice to get on my knees and pray every morning. Things like that. Like, it is so much better as a result of it. So the details, I don't know. Yeah. How do you feel that your life has been enriched through choosing to bring God back into your life?
Well, first thing,
or is that appropriate to say choosing to like, or is it just, I don't know. Anyway, from God being more present for you, seeking all of that.
Yeah. So like, first thing, I think therapy, I'm talking freely now because I think therapy has played a big role. Right now I'm not in therapy, but I did I've done some of it. And at first I was like, I don't need to talk to anybody. Like, I'm fine.
I've made it this far in life. Yeah.
What are you going to tell me? But also it exposed how broken, it brought to surface so many things that needed healing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the peace of God, his presence is getting me through it, Mm-hmm. Like, I remember being in my therapy session and this is how closed up I've lived most of my life. I've known I have had built so many walls to survive, but I didn't know how big they were, to a point where the therapist is like, Angelique, I feel like there are things you're choosing to not tell me right now. Then I'm like, yep. I'm like, how can she see that?
Yeah.
Then I'm like, you know what, Angelique, why are you here if you're not going to open up and
tell me the truth?
And tell me the truth. And so here's my journey of just being open. And it's just been a beautiful journey to see how much peace, how much healing I'm getting just by allowing people besides my siblings to really get into my space, through small group. And it has enriched my sense of community. I didn't even have that before. I don't know. I didn't believe in that. I just I have friends. We go out. We have fun. I have my family. I can always turn back to my siblings because that has always been my backbone. And I've been okay with that. And just friends, but maybe friends who are not taking me to do good, I don't know, to make the best choices, you know?
Yeah.
Who are as broken as I am, who are still figuring things out. I'm still figuring things out. Yes. But now I get people who are doing the work.
Yes.
As we figure things out.
Yes.
And that has been so nice. And to just see that you can share with them and be open and not be judged. And even if I'm being judged, I really don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I really don't.
It's so nice. I remember this makes me think. So one, it makes me think of the truth will set you free. And just thinking about that phrase of you choosing to get honest through that discomfort with that therapist gave you the gift of freedom from being imprisoned with those thoughts, those experiences. Someone else knew that they happened. You were able to articulate them a bit, and that helps a lot. Yeah. And then the people who are doing the work, I don't know, it just takes me back to getting sober a few years ago and going through all of my therapeutic experiences and just all of the dramatic change in just perspective in life.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
Was it easy for you to open up in therapy? For me, it was like really hard at the first time. I'm like, I'm talking to a stranger.
Yeah. No. So my first therapist, she was a little bit closer to my age. And for me, at least in the domain that I'm seeking your support for, I want you to have something that I want. So when I'm seeking, and I'm not saying this is like the way that anybody else should do this. This is just my experience. But I went to a therapist who I didn't feel like really resonated with me, and I didn't feel like she had anything that I wanted. And so then I'm just kind of like, I went a handful of times and I didn't feel anything meaningful from it. And then I went to my next therapist shortly after that. And then by then I'd gotten sober and was like brand new sober. But she, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. So that's for anybody listening who doesn't have that context. That's a big part of my story because it was a big part of my life for a long time. So anyway, she was a mother in a loving relationship with children that were near my age, that she traveled a lot. She was vibrant. She was healthy. And because she was all of these different things, I was so much more willing to be open with her because I'm like, you have something that I want, And so I don't know that that's like what we should do with a therapist by any means. That's not what I'm saying. But with my first therapist, it did not work out. And it's not that she was bad or anything, but we did not make any real headway. But I do also feel like talk therapy for me, which is the only therapy that I've gone to, was very helpful. But I also needed a lot of like tough love too. Not just say how I feel. That was important to talk about what was going on for sure. Yeah. But then I needed some real like direction, action. Here's how you've been doing things in ways that hurt you and hurt other people. And here's the spiritual principles that if you don't want to have those experiences, then to live by. And all of that I didn't receive in therapy. So that was through mentorship elsewhere. Yeah. Anyway.
Therapy.
So your therapist you struggled with, but then you got through it?
Yes. So I've had 2 so far.
Okay.
And currently I don't have any, and I've never had an in-person therapy session. The first one was like over the phone. Again, it's my walls still being up.
Well, yeah, I mean, then that's just enabling that.
Yeah,
that's tough.
And then my most recent one was like a video call. So I'm like, okay, you can see my face and we can talk. But I don't know, I just took a break, but I'm open to still going to therapy. And I think my next one is going to be in person.
Yeah.
So like, that's a big, like a huge thing. And another thing has to do with like relationship-wise, like romantic relationships.
Yeah.
So like for me, I think this is gonna sound crazy, but it's related. When my mom passed away, I just feel like a part of me died with her. Mm-hmm. And that's the only time, I'm 45 years old, that I've been heartbroken. Not because I haven't been in relationships, but I always, because it hurts so much, I just was not ready to open up my heart to anything or anybody to hurt me. So like I consciously, this sounds crazy, but I did. I always chose people that I knew I could easily get rid of. Yeah. But now that I've gone like with my relationship with God, I've had that healing. And I always say like, I'm so glad I didn't let anybody, didn't get married in my 20s and my 30s, because because some people wanted to get married. I've had people want that with me, but I was not ready. I would be divorced. I would have been divorced like maybe 2 or 3 times by now. I don't know. So I'm so glad that I first worked on my relationship with God and with myself before I can allow someone else in. Now, what does that look like for my future relationships? Now I'm like, oh, that means like I might not be able to have kids, because at 45, scientifically, biblically, like at 99 years old, you can still have kids. Yeah. But That's another thing. So like my journey with God, it's been on and off. At 32, without going into detail, I just decided to stop like wilding out, like I was like, you know what, God, I'm gonna let you have a go and be God in my life. But it was like always on and off. I was still like going out so much and maybe not going to church, but saying like there are things I'm not gonna do. I'm gonna not, like have sex with any guy that I'm dating and things like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't have like really structure. But then eventually I decided to be like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna wait on your time and be with the guy that I'm married to, my husband. But now I'm just like, I'm 45 and I don't have kids. And now, like, this is TMI, but this is my story. And the reason I wanted to share is to encourage someone maybe who might be going through the same thing that I'm going through. But like, yes, I've been following God. I've done all these things. Again, this is me questioning God's goodness. I'm like, God, I start having like health issues, and it happens that like with my fibroids, like they started like I had fibroids, and they're like, oh, you might not be able to have kids, or maybe we can take them out, but we can't guarantee. They give you so many options. Then in my head, I'm like, really, God, this is how you pay me back. I give you my life, and now my life is all over the place. But even with that, like I still have the peace of God, like just telling me like, I'm gonna take care of you. And yes, I've had time to grieve the fact that maybe I might not be able to have my own biological kids. That took a minute.
Yeah.
That took me a minute because I love kids. I really love kids, and I wanted to have my own kids. But I haven't always wanted to in my 20s, 30s. I wasn't really sure if that was for me. Yeah, because if you don't want marriage, I don't know. I didn't want to be a single mom, and I was so scared to be married. I'm like, I don't know how to be a wife, whatever.
Yeah.
But now that I've been doing the work, and God is telling me like, it's okay, you're going to have family and all these things. And then I'm like, okay, but this is not how I wanted things to look like. But to tell you, like how he's worked with me, he's giving me peace, even though like life is not looking the way I thought it would look like.
Yeah.
And I'm not out here trying to be desperate to find someone so I can have kids.
Yeah.
Because that's just not who I am. Because I love my life. My life is beautiful, even being single. Whether I get married, I do want marriage, yes, but that's not, if it doesn't happen, I will still have lived a full life. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's only God. Only God can do that for you.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm talking about it, like...
Yeah. Well,
like,
that's so cool. That was a motivator between your choice to share your story, was to say, maybe someone else will relate. Yeah, I have some unique circumstances through childhood, which thank you for being willing to share that, because that's heavy. And you could just choose not to. And I think it's really cool that you choose to. But that then now it's, and I'd also like to share that, I mean, I know that I have many friends in their 30s and 40s who would like to settle down. Anyway, this is relatable. And I do believe that someone will hear this and feel related to at minimum. And you do never know. Like I always was telling one of my clients earlier today, we were in the gym and she was having some struggles. We were just talking about a couple of different things that she's struggled with in the past and is currently dealing with. And I said, you just, we like all of those things are real and that's part of the journey, but we don't have the full picture.
No.
And so with her, with this specific situation, it was just her own health journey. We don't have the full picture, like play out where we're at today over the next 5-10 years, et cetera, get a broader view, and so with what's going on in your life, with your romantic life today and your hopes for all those things, like we still don't know what God's going to do with that. Exactly. And that choice to give it up, like it's so cool because I don't know, I'm just like, maybe I'm delusionally optimistic and I'm just going to stay that way. And I'm like, not sorry. But I just choose to believe that if you choose to try to follow spiritual principles, then you wind up having a higher quality of life, that peace in the chaos and all of that.
Yeah.
And that creates an individual that is pretty attractive to other individuals, you know, and whether that's professionally or romantically or why we're sitting here now, because you show up in a way where I like to hang out with you as your friend, you know, like it all works out.
It all works out. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Even though we don't know how
Yeah.
yet.
And like for me, I like say like everything happens for a reason. Like with my health issue, like maybe I don't know, like I'm like God, like he's using it. I don't know. For his glory to shine in my life, because I truly believe I'm gonna have kids.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm saying it out loud, and they're gonna be my own. But please, I don't want to be a 99-year-old with babies running around.
That'd be insane.
No, I would never be able to do that.
Yeah, no.
So I hope God is listening. We're not doing that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, tell me, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on in your journey? I think it's just really, really cool to see that the way that you show up in the world today is so like you're just a beautiful light is what I see when I see you. And I've seen you consistently for a couple of years now. And just to hear you say, like, here's where I've been and here's how I'm choosing to live today.
Yeah. Well, not really. Like someone's life, especially if you've lived for 45 years, this is my 45th year that I'm living. There's so much, we can't talk about my story in 1 hour and finish.
Yeah, no.
But like, I just want to tell you thank you for choosing me, for seeing me, for creating a safe space for me to share my story. I was so scared I was going to cry, but I didn't. Well, I had moments.
Whatever.
And it's human. It's okay.
Yes.
The reason I said yes, when you texted me, you know, like when we started that whole conversation, I literally was on the phone with, like, from my doctor's office, and, you know, they're trying to come up with different solutions. What are we going to do? Like, I don't know, like, different medical solutions based on my situation with my fibroids. And I remember just being so angry with God because everything was coming out like so negative, not how I wanted it to turn out. And I'm logged in, I'm at work and I'm dealing with all these things. Then I saw your text message because I was like, what do you want from me, God? Then I saw your text and you're asking me. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe God wants me to share my story so I can encourage someone else. Like life sometimes doesn't go the way we want it to go, but God is with you and he has a plan, a really great plan for you. And I don't know what the future holds for me, but I know you are part of my journey because of that text that came. Like, instead of being so angry, it's like it was an answered prayer. Not the way I wanted it to be answered. Right. The perfect answer would have been like, the fibroids are shrunk, you're good, no more pain. And then it's like, oh, do you want to share your story? I'm like, my story? What story? And then I'm like, okay. Then I hear a voice telling me, this is what I want you to share. Because as you noticed, you didn't really ask me about this. It just came out. Yeah. You know, so.
Well, it's what you're dealing with today.
Yes. Because you didn't know about this. I haven't shared this with you.
No, not at all. And fibroids, is that something that is growing?
They're like tumor
cysts?
I think there's tumor cysts in your uterus.
Yes.
But they're not cancerous, at least as far as I know. They're not cancerous. So, yeah. And there are surgeries that can be done. I've done so much research. You can do surgery, but there's a possibility they're going to come back. There's a possibility of taking out your uterus if you overbleed. And then I'm just like, I'm not ready for that. Yeah. So, and even I've obviously gone to doctors. I'm not saying don't rely on God. Yes, rely on God, but God created doctors to also guide through your health journey. Sure, yeah. And sometimes he does miraculous things. I'm believing for that, you know, I have the grace for it. But also I've gone to my doctor and she gave me the option. She told me if it's an on and off pain and you can tolerate it, then I don't see why you should go through surgery. Because like I think eventually they shrink. Like the older you get, I don't know.
I won't pretend to know anything. Now I'm curious enough. I'm going to look into this once we're done here.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious.
Yes.
I'm a very curious creature about health. So beware. But either way, I don't know. I know that I can get curious about it with you and then pray for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really grateful for you reaching out.
We finish every episode with 3 gratitudes.
Okay.
So you have to say 3 gratitudes. That could be one of them if you want, or whatever.
Okay.
And thank you. Obviously, after that conversation, I was like, we need to capture that. If she's willing to tell that on camera, we have to capture that. So thank you, because it is a big ask. I know it's not comfortable, and it's not what you do, so it is.
No, but it's part of my story. It's like, if I shared my childhood story, why not be open to what I'm currently living? Yeah. And I have the grace for it. Yeah. And the strength to share. So, and you've created that space for me. So thank you. Yeah.
It's an honor. I kind of love doing it.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. 3 gratitudes.
I'm super grateful for life. And that means God. I am super grateful for his unconditional love for me, for his patience for me, for waiting for me to catch up to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for you creating a safe space for me to share I've never done this. Before I came, the only person I texted, obviously I've shared it with my small group so they can pray for me and a few people, but I texted my siblings. We have a group chat and told them, I'm about to do this podcast thing. I'm going to talk about my story. Just pray that God is in it. And I truly feel his presence because I have that peace.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being such a light. And everyone has a story. I don't know why, what you saw in me, or maybe it's a God thing, but thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone does have a story. And what I saw is you've got this story that is profoundly traumatic, is the appropriate term, but that doesn't define you. And so yes, we chose to go there. That's why I asked you to come here, is because we chose to go there because you did share that with me. And that was unique. It's not every day that I hear a story like that. And I really enjoy hearing stories and sharing stories, especially of individuals who have overcome, who have displayed resilience, who have figured it out and found a better way to live and found a way to overcome all of their stuff. And so that's why that choice took place. What I saw in you was this bold person who was willing to tell her story and then also just live a beautiful life, go be a yoga instructor and share her low fashion journey and all those things. Like that's, you could be bitter and you could hide away and not show up to these community things that you're actively a part of and you hold service positions at. Like you choose to show up in the world and be of service to the world around you consistently. And that typically is a value add to your own life. In my experience, anytime that I can be divinely inconvenienced and I'm willing to let that happen, it always works out. I'm always glad I did it. And so anyway, that's why I asked you to come here, because I think you're cool.
Oh, thank you. My last gratitude. Oh, there's so many.
I know,
I live in gratitude. It's my intention for almost every yoga class I'm about to teach. But I'm grateful for finding a church that has allowed me to heal. I don't know. I like to joke. I've told my friends, I'm like, why would God choose 3 white pastors to play such a big role in my life? I don't get it. Really? But hey, God does whatever he does. And I'm super grateful for my church, the community, the friendships that have come out of it, my small group, the inner work that's happening, what it's doing for me. And it's helping me get through the chaos, the peace within the chaos. I really can attest to that because my life is not perfect, but my life is beautiful at the same time. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I share my 3 gratitudes as well. So I'll just flip it and use the same one, your last one right there, of the gratitude for the church thing. Cause it is so true. And honestly, I don't know that I give it enough credit for the fact that I say that. I mean, I do often recognize having come from an experience that for me, for my childhood, et cetera, was for me a negative experience in a religious construct, to then have zero desire to want anything to do with any of that through my adult life, to then coming to Red Rocks. It was so cool. And they also put all their services on YouTube. So anybody who's not here in Austin can go watch them.
Yes.
You can watch them live. You can watch them back. You can, and then people who are here, of course, you can attend. But I've had the opportunity now to bring so many people there, which is so crazy to like reflect back on.
Sam, my sister in Belgium, there's a Red Rocks in Belgium.
Yes.
She has 5 kids. That's another story. But like the whole family now goes to Red Rocks.
Which is so cool.
Isn't that so cool?
Yes.
And she heard it from me. She loves like the kids program because she wants her kids to grow with like that foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a blessing for sure.
Yeah. And it's just, it's the fact that like, I remember the first one I came into and seeing the way that everyone was dressed and whatever, I mean, like, oh, so you don't have to be like a robot to be here.
Thing.
You
I'm
know?
like, oh, I can be myself.
Yes, you can be yourself and you can be imperfect and they're
Come
good
as
with
you
that.
are.
Yeah. And like, and you, it just, that's like real. And so we are very, very blessed to have access to a place where like, you're just allowed to come and try to figure it out along with a bunch of other humans trying to figure it out. And it's a net positive experience every single time. So anyway, okay. That's one of mine. My second gratitude is just going to be, I have had, a great week in my fitness journey of just like, I've done multiple workouts this week where I impressed myself, and
so cool
being so very far into that journey, like that doesn't happen all the time. And anyway, also because I am healing from living in mold, and I was living in it for a year, but I moved out in June. Things are consistently getting
I'm glad you're doing better.
Yeah, they're definitely getting better.
Yeah.
I've already, it's kind of,
I saw the pictures. That was
yeah. Well, and I've lost like 8 pounds of inflammation, which I think if I had heard that from anyone else, because I track everything. So like my caloric intake hasn't changed in like 5 months. And in the past month, like 8, it's just gone. And it truly is inflammation. That's how it's just the most bizarre thing. Because I think if I were to hear that from somebody else, I'd be like, what? But I'm living it. And it's really, which is encouraging, because that also was painful. Like not only was it literally making me physically appear puffy, which it just was, and I didn't enjoy that, but also it was actually painful anyway. So I'm grateful to not only be losing some of that, but also gaining access to fitness that I'm more accustomed to having because I work for it and I sure want to experience it. So that's cool. And then my third and final gratitude, who are we going to go? I'm going to go for my mom. I have a positive relationship with her, and she's very patient with me. And you said a lot of attributes today that make me think of my grandmother, but also make me think of my mother. So thank you for making me think about that. So
I'm glad.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Is there anything you want to plug? I'll put your Instagram, if you would like, down in the description below, so that if anybody wants to connect with you, they could DM you or anything like that. Is that okay?
Yeah. Now that I've started like doing like the yoga instructor at Core Power, they can come take my classes.
Yeah.
I am at the Monarch location.
At the Monarch location at Core Power.
In Core Power.
Okay.
Yeah. Tuesday, super early in the morning, 5:30, and Wednesday night, 8:30 at night.
Okay.
Yeah. But on the side, I'm available to do like privates for someone who wants to go deeper with their yoga journey, or like do like group, like events, like bachelorette, birthday parties.
Yes.
I'm here. They can find me on Instagram.
And they connect with you there to book that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, cool. That will be in the description below. And then as for mine, you already know the drill, probably, maybe, hopefully. I run a coaching business as well. You can train with me in person. I'm predominantly strength training, although I've got an extensive CrossFit background. We got options. But I do nutrition coaching and fitness. I have an app, and so you get custom workout plans, custom meal plans. It's actually a pretty dope product. So anyway, that will all be in the description as well. If that calls to you and you would like to work together on your health journey, I am happy to have a little chat about that. So other than that, we just hope that you choose to have a beautiful day. All right.